Thank you so much for allowing me to join you today. This morning was wonderful, and I'm even more excited to see you again. And so here we are today. We're going to be talking about staying intentional through college and COVID. And first slide, I do have my Instagram link, or whatever you call it. So I would love to stay in touch with all of you wonderful people. And first and foremost, I would love to thank the Purdue Student Government, Shannon King, thank you, and Renee Towers, and Asada, and all of the wonderful people that put this together, barely knowing me. I'm a teeny tiny unknown dot in this universe of clinical psychiatry, and how you guys found me and how you decided to invite me is just magnificent. Thank you. And I'm so glad to be here. So today, what I'd like for us to do is I'd like for us to talk about staying intentional, how to stay intentional through college and COVID. And I'm going to explain what that word really means, beyond the cliches, what it really means, why it's of value to you, and how you can translate that word into doable action. I've lost the screen here. I'm not sure if you guys can still see me, but I'm going to keep going. All right. And so why, I work with patients of all ages, but the challenges that you face as college students, I really have a soft corner for. Okay, it doesn't qualify as breaking news. It's not a tsunami. It's not an earthquake. It's not about global poverty. It's not a war on terrorism. And so very often, I think people underestimate how challenging this time is for you as students, as college students. I completely disagree. I think the challenges that you face is a giant, giant problem. And I think it matters because you guys are the face of America. Your experience matters, your lives matter, and living your life with intentionality matters. And so that's why my passion has been to really focus on your population. And over the years, as I work with students, I hear stories, enthusiastic kids, with dreams, potential, reasonable GPA, involved in student activities, and so excited to leave home, so excited for those college apps, so nervous, so brave, and then 2 years down the road, some of them are back home. Okay, some are down a semester, a few classes behind. And that's when the shame starts to set in. 4 years of being a student, they get through, but they're released into a world. And I can't tell you how many of you I hear say they've no skills and no confidence to land a job that they celebrate. They land jobs, but a job that they really celebrate. And that really makes me sad because you know what? Game's up, it's graduation, and everyone's mad. Parents are really mad, It's like we have kids, it's a failure to launch. And then they toss around words like they're so entitled. Students are angry. They blame colleges and say, hey, those colleges, they refuse to deliver. Now with COVID, I hear that even more, And I just see a shift in the mood of those enthusiastic kids. Now, I'm hearing a tick. Is everything okay? Ticking? Oh, okay. So,
sorry.
We're all good?
Yes, if everyone could mute their mics, that'd be great. I think we're good now. Go ahead.
Oh, super. I'm so technologically not savvy. It's awful. So sorry, guys. Okay, you're the tech gurus. Help me out. All right. So what I see is kids are angry. Parents are angry. I see a lot of kids at this time. They now start to kind of be sad, not have the hope they did, not have that self-esteem they did, feeling kind of helpless, trapped, worried, gnawing worry. Sounds a lot to me like clinical depression and anxiety starting to seep in, okay? Stomach in knots worry. And then the worst thing of all, more than any of that, is that I see what they lean into to drive them, to motivate them to apply for jobs or to show up at work. And that's not the enthusiasm that I want you guys to have. It's shame. It becomes that shame. And that is a horrible motivator. And so that's why I would like to speak. For years, I've loved to speak with college kids, and especially now with COVID, because I think that that is very, very unfortunate. And I want you to see that there can be a different way, okay? Because here you are, graduating, you're so lost. Like those dreams are lost, purpose is lost. And I think what happened to that inspired 17-year-old you, when you graduated and you were beaming, you wrote those essays, and now here I see that lost confidence, loss of focus, not knowing where to start. And the worst of all, that lost identity, feeling like, who am I even? Because you had 4 years of belonging at a school, college, and you did a great job, and you're tossed into a world and you're a nobody. Okay? And there's that failure to launch. And I see this and I look at it and I say, this is how I see this problem. Okay? So if you look at, there's a slide that has arrows about, it kind of tracks down. And I simplify life and its problems in a format that works most of the time. I see it as there are things in life that cause stress. Okay? Stress is ubiquitous. We can never get away from stress. It's everywhere. So if I look at you, wonderful, wonderful young people, your stress is college as is, meaning just college in of itself, because I see it as something very stressful. It's great stress, but it's stress, okay? And then you got COVID. These are two major stressors in your life. Now, what you do with those stressors is where things get exciting, because that stress leads to you having a choice to have certain thoughts, okay? And those thoughts, once you've chosen to have a certain way of thinking, you're going to start to have some feelings, whether you're angry or bitter or worried or disinterested. And from those feelings are going to come your behaviors. And the more negative your behaviors are, guys, the worse the outcome's going to be, most likely. Even if you fake it for a while and have decent behavior, even coming from that toxic place, it's not going to be sustainable. So the way I look at it is that, hey, nothing happens by accident. Outcomes don't happen just out of the blue. Let's look at life as this simple little formula and see where can we step in and what can we do. Because there are things in life that we can control and things we can't. Okay, so then I've been presenting, on this topic for about 10 years now about the transition to college, because I felt really very strongly about this, how we send our kids off to college and how unprepared they are. And then Purdue, these wonderful young ladies from Purdue reach out to me, and I think to myself, boy, cardinal rule of presenting, know your audience. And here, this is Purdue we're talking about. Highly, highly motivated group, intelligent, right? You aren't just ordinary students. And I say that, I mean that from the bottom of my heart, okay? I ask you guys to look back at September 14, 2020. What happened? Something big happened for you guys. Very few Purdue students seem to remember. That's the day Purdue got a new ranking. The US News and World Report, their 2021 best college rankings came out. And guess what? You guys beat Stanford. You are now number 5. You're better than you were even last year. That is a big deal. You got a giant list of astronauts, aviators, so many hugely successful people. Neil Armstrong, Captain Sully, Jim Gaffigan, okay? Huge talent. And so of all people, why am I talking with you about not being motivated or having a bad outcome? Seems kind of silly. It's like, come on, these kids, they know what they're doing, Dr. Tin. In fact, I wish I could have been you. The reason I talk is because at the end of the day, you're human. Every one of you is human. You're magnificent adults. You've got such magnificent dreams. And whether you like it or not, college is a perfect storm. That's when biology, things just come together. Your scaffolding is lost, your support is lost, lots of things change. And even though you have the greatest intentions in place, you know what? It is the perfect storm for you as well. And so I think it's important to speak with you. I think it's really incumbent upon us to learn from the millennials, because once upon a time, they were just like you kids. They were excited, they were enthusiastic until they graduated, okay? And of course, let's just say this doesn't apply to 99.99% of the students at Purdue. Well, guess what? We had COVID. And with COVID, I think there's a whole new layer of stress and a whole new layer of challenging thoughts and challenging feelings and challenging behaviors. And I just don't think we can afford the cost and consequences of doing college as is. Whatever worked before, now with COVID, I think it's a big, big wake-up call, okay? And this is where our talk today comes into play. It's all about intentionality, okay? How we're going to reclaim our power. All right, so here's a slide where we look at college and COVID and stress. You know, you can choose to have negative thoughts that are going to lead to negative feelings, negative behaviors, negative outcomes, or right at the point of the thoughts, you can opt to take it the other way. It's not as easy as you think. This is a presentation I would love to do with you guys sometime. You know, it's almost like a workshop in of itself, and I've done it for groups, and I'd love to help you on it. But basically, this is the theory. Start to identify where your thoughts go wrong. Bad things don't just happen. I don't want us to be in the habit of blaming it on stress and stressful events that we could not change, okay? Because we've got a lot more power than we realize, right? There's a sign on my door. If any of you have been to my office, or hopefully one day will visit if you're in Chicago, and the sign says Ancora Imparo. And what does that mean? It means I'm still learning. And those are the words of Michelangelo. So after he painted the Sistine Chapel, he's 89 years old, he gets asked, do you have any advice for your students? And he says, I'm still learning, ancora imparo. And I thought that is so hugely humbling. And that's on my door of my room at my office, because every single day I've worked with students like you for a long, long time. And I realize how much you guys have taught me. I've been humbled so many times over, right? You've taught me more often than not how really little I know, okay? You've taught me to listen, how to really listen to your voices, not just the surface, okay? In sharing your journeys with me, which I feel so privileged that you're comfortable enough to do, you've allowed me to take a peek into your reality, the truth of what really happens in your lives, beyond the fluff, okay? And so here I am, 20 years of wearing these glasses of this clinician, very ordinary clinician, no big standing, nothing. But all I do is get my hands dirty because I really like to dig deep and understand you kids. And so I've got this lens of just a regular clinician with this added filter of how you as college students actually live and breathe. And so you've really inspired me to look through this lens. And with that, I feel like there's a different way of understanding problems and maybe some novel solutions. And that's what I really want to share with you kids today. So I don't want us to see this as a talk. I really would like to extend this as an invitation. Students, my lovely, lovely students at Purdue, go on a journey with me. I invite you to look at the world through a new lens. And I invite you to learn how to take charge of your intentionality. So my pitch is that you guys, I have my pitch. My pitch is live life with intentionality. It's going to influence your outcome. You are the investors. You're the almighty potential investors. I've put together a toolkit and I am pitching it to you. I want you to take charge of it, okay? Because first things first, let's remind ourselves, and this is really empowering. Despite COVID, college is a choice. As much as kids and young adults are upset about COVID, I ask them to take a step back and say, guys, it's a choice. You're not forced to go to college. There's no gun to your head saying you have to stay there. This is wonderful. It's a tough choice. It's stressful. All that's happening in college is stressful. But at the end of the day, let's learn to look at this with gratitude and see it as, boy, I'm making this choice to go to college. And yes, there are these stressors. And yes, there's COVID, but I'm choosing to go. I'm choosing to show up. And so guess what? It's going to be my choice to make that outcome, what outcome I want to have, right? It's a very courageous choice. It takes a lot of courage to go off to college. And I know you kids have it. It's the first independent educational choice you've made. Every one of you, when you went to college, you had to convince your parents, you had to convince them that financially it would be a good idea, that you were capable of managing, okay? You've each individually made the choice to be here. And that's because young minds like yourselves, it's so beautiful. You are naturally wired to explore. You're not jaded. And I want to catch you before you become jaded, okay? You have the courage to step outside the comfort of your homes, cozy beds, your bathroom to yourself, mom's cooking, all of that. You've left that comfort just because of one thing. You had the courage and desire to learn something new, right? And so I want us to learn how to live this choice with intentionality. COVID or not, stressors of college or not, how are we going to live it with so much intentionality that the dreams you walked in with are going to be just dilute compared to the dreams you're going to walk out with? That's how I want it to be, right? Okay, so let's go back to where we began, right? In college, high school senior, 17 years old, you had structure, you had parents nagging you, waking you up, feeding you, sending you off to school, checking your grades compulsively, going on whatever that online grade check awful thing is, and your homework assignments, missing assignments, getting emails from teachers. You had these safety nets, speed bumps, grades to tell you before you failed. You land in college, there's no such thing. Your parents don't have access to any of that. The grade you get is really the grade that you get at the end of the semester, maybe one or two tests before that, right? But back then, when you were 17, you had a dream, you had potential, you had a way, you had an identity, got sent off to college. Off you go, put in a box, labeled, delivered to the dorm. And what we don't realize is when I say college is stressful, I encourage parents to understand, and students, even kids going away, that college really is all of your life now in one box. That college campus is now home to you. It's where you live. It's your school. It's where academics happen. It's where your social life happens. It's where you're going to have your crushes, where you're going to have your flings. It's going to have where you have your parties, your friends, your academic support services, your physical activity, your food, your counseling. Everything is just in that one little box. That's a lot. That's a lot to manage on your own. And so this presentation is really about the reality of college years, what happens, and acknowledging that campuses have rites of passages, and they're very dangerous. They're much more dangerous than parents realize. Greek life, the roommate lottery, roommates, I see them as putting you guys almost in a marriage. It's like having a spouse. Never met the spouse. It's like one of those, what do you call it? Those internet marriages. Boom, someone shows up on the internet, you connected a little bit, and now guess what? For a full year, you're going to live together, wake up together, breathe together in this room. All right? That's a big lottery. That's a big risk. Right? You got sex, you got drugs, you've got freedom, you got so much, and it's awesome. It's all good stuff. But you know what? It's dangerous too. And college behavior, I work with students across every different type of college, community colleges, the high, the the East Coast, the West Coast, the elite ones, the ones that are less, a little bit more athletically inclined. There's one common thread: the behavior at all of them, no matter what, Ivy League or not, college behavior is really the same. Three big things: you're distracted, you're disengaged, and you're drunk. Okay? I don't care what you tell your parents. This is the reality. This is what happens. It is the end of the innocence, right? And then, so I've been talking with college students for years for that reason. Not because I don't want you to have fun, but I want you guys to be able to go in and not be so disengaged. But now here we are, you added COVID. So kids went off to college, priorities completely shifted. It became people first, meeting people and parties, way much more of a priority than papers. Tell me if I'm wrong, okay? Purpose is lost. It's a real challenge to purpose. Add COVID, take away those parties. There's no party. Without a party, who wants to do a paper? You do the papers so that you can attend the parties, because if you don't do the papers, mom and dad are going to yank you out. Do you know how hard it is to stay motivated? Okay. Next thing, dishonesty. I hear so much, especially with COVID, with students saying, we're on camera, there's so much cheating. There's so much more dishonesty. There always was, but now there's opportunity for so much more. And what I worry about is that loss of integrity. Because once that slips away, it's very, very scary how it becomes a way of life, right? You neglect yourself. You go to college, you neglect yourself. You just do, right? Sleep, exercise, diet, all of that goes out the window. Now with COVID, it's even worse, right? You're so distracted. College used to be about being distracted, but it was all about the good stuff, right? A new place, novelty, so much going on, new roommates, so much going on, sensory overload, pretty ladies everywhere. College now with COVID, it's novelty, but it's barren. It's like we plucked you and put you in a desert, okay? It's just barren. You're not allowed to hang out in big groups. You can't see as many people. You're scrambling, but you're bored out of your mind. The self-neglect you had before, it's even worse now. At least before, you had a reason to get out of bed and shower, because there may be a cute boy in the class, or there may be a party that night, and it's fun to go hang out with your friends. It's not all about just, parties and hooking up. But now, very, very little reason to really even get out of bed, shower, put on, brush your hair, brush your teeth, because you're just going to log in onto that computer in your room. Why even get out of bed? Big, another task of college was multitasking, right? You had a cook at home, now it's a no-show. Clear, no-show. Alarm clock malfunction. There's no alarm clock here. There's no mom waking you up. There's no laundry being done. Got all of these problems added. And then we got COVID. Okay? So COVID hits, and it hits you with a bunch of things. It hits you with remote learning. It hits you with political unrest. Why does it matter to students? Because you guys, you're the future of America. Politics matter. What's going on in the country matters. You have the enthusiasm. And this unrest hurts. There's financial uncertainty everywhere. That's one of the sequelae of COVID, right? It's scary. There's distancing, there's the mask, there's the quarantine. You get sick, or you test positive, shutting down for 2 weeks, quarantining, the shutdowns. Nothing being open anymore. Campus life, not what it was. Games, nothing. Connectedness, how much it's just lost. And the capacity for intimacy and integrating, okay? And then the stress of just being bored. So what we're seeing is, psychologically, we are seeing rates of depression, anxiety, suicide, substance abuse. All of these things are going up, up, up. Even little things you could count on. Before COVID, when you think about anxiety, it really is about not having control. right? That's what it boils down to. Think of your lives with COVID. You don't even know what next semester is going to look like. You don't even know whether you're going to have a final. You don't know 3 weeks from now, are you guys still going to be in class, or is there going to be some change with policy, right? There's just no certainty with your schedule. You had internships planned. How many of you had internships planned for summers? Boom, gone. No certainty there anymore. You forget about study abroad, canceled, okay, if even it was ever scheduled. But these are big deals and it's stressful. And then let's go to the two biggies of COVID, the social distancing. If anybody is a fan of Entourage, that line, let's hug it out, bitch. That's Ari Gold, Entourage. And basically what he says is, no matter what the stress, hugs, diffuse things, helps us connect back as humans again, helps us let go of resentments, helps us put things into perspective. What happens with social distancing? We can't do that. We can't stand close. You're 6 feet apart. It's like being 6 feet under, okay? There is no physical contact. There's no pat on the back. There's no comforting people. But you are stuck very, very close to this roommate because you're not allowed to meet too many people. And it's almost suffocating, right? And this stuff really takes away from connectedness because you're sent off to college expecting to connect. Connectedness is why you're here. That's why you guys really came off to a college campus. You wanted to connect. And you know what? It takes a lot of work. And here we are with COVID. We have made connectedness, which was always difficult, even more challenging. And so I believe, COVID or not, we can keep our behavior at being very connected. But how we're going to make it work is by being really intentional. Okay? So every problem I'm pointing out, the reason I point it out is because it's really important for us to be aware that there is a problem. So we can say, okay, here's the problem. Here, I'm going to trace it back and see what can I do differently, right? Here we go with those lovely masks. So of course we have to wear them. It's a global pandemic, but just think about the impact on engagement. Here we logged on. I saw Shannon. You know what? Just seeing that smiley face, just how relaxed she looked, helped put me at ease, right? Imagine if Shannon were on the camera, like, right away, my interaction with you would be impacted. I'd be more tense, okay? Let's just say Asada this morning was really grumpy and said, whatever, just get it started. It would affect my vibe because we as humans, we mirror each other's responses. You smile, I smile. Because I'm seeing you, it makes me want to smile because I feel a personal responsibility to manage the mood. But now you got the mask. You can't see if I'm smiling. And we're becoming more and more lazy. We smile less because it doesn't show anymore. And even if the person's smiling, we can't mirror off of them anymore. This stuff matters when it comes to connection. So when we say, my gosh, we're so distant, I feel so disconnected from everyone, this stuff runs deep, all right? We're not motivated to groom anymore. If we've got the mask on and we're in bed, why bother? And so our self-esteem slowly starts to just, peel away. And that identity that we worked so hard to build coming to college, because we gave up that identity we had in high school. We had it all set there. We were, choir, theater, dance, blah, blah, blah. We had an identity, whether we were the kids in extended classes, whatever. You came to college, really wanted to work hard at this new identity, and boom, we got this mask. All of you are pretty much invisible. You're not sharing, you're not able to support, you're not listening, you're not being heard. It's impacted connectedness. Guys, if anything, make sure that is something that you as students from here on commit to doing, to really understanding how to connect authentically and truly, not just the house, the weather, and oh gosh, COVID. So Because college as is, we can't afford to do, right? We just can't. We can't have people come out being so miserable, dissatisfied with life. I've got a whole list of consequences there. But to me, the most important is really the last line, that loss of human spirit and the lack of empathy, because we become so numb, we stop feeling for others. We're so afraid we can't be vulnerable anymore. We don't know who we are. We can't be authentic. And that is the scary part. And so that's what I want you kids to take charge of, right? And understanding how it happens is always the first step. So again, I keep life kind of simple. And I say everything I ever learned, there's a phrase about I learned in kindergarten. For me, it's a little bit different. Everything I ever learned, I think I learned with the serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, i.e. stressors at college and COVID. I can stomp all I want. The way college is run is not going to change, and neither should it, because that's not what living is all about. It's about the serenity to accept it, but the courage to change the things I can. What do I do with these circumstances that I'm given? And the wisdom to know the difference. So I want all of you lovely, lovely students, start with acceptance. Accept it. College is, COVID is, it is what it is. Okay, no more arguing. It's an imperfect world. It's a very, very imperfect. Okay, that's not the kind of person I want you guys to be. It's very, very important that you learn to build your self-esteem and become what I called hard-boiled eggs. Because what happens then is, no matter, I'm going to drop this here, life's tossed things your way. You're going to fail certain tests. You're not going to be the top dog, socially. You're going to have COVID. You're going to miss school. And lots and lots of your flaws are going to show up. But guess what? You're still of value. There's still some use. That's the kind of person I want you kids to aspire to be. That inside, you have to build. That comes with integrity and purpose and self-esteem. Okay? Having a sense that no matter what, you are responsible for your purpose in life and how you view yourself and how you treat yourself. Okay, and having that courage to be aware of those flaws. These eggs, boiled eggs, I love them because they are not afraid of being vulnerable. If you are a person with no self-esteem, you're going to have to walk around life in a crate, keeping people away, because you can't have intimacy, because if anyone comes close, there are knocks and you're shattered and you're rendered useless. You don't have a chance at intimacy. So it's really important that you kids in this time really learn to build that self-esteem, your value, your worth, your purpose. So you go out into the world and then you really know how to connect with people, what intimacy is about. Okay? And define your purpose. We're just roadkill in life. Bad things happen, right? It's not personal. That's another big, big thought rule. It's not personal, guys. It just happens. It didn't happen to us. Right? So, all right. So when we look at the barriers to college success, the top 5 barriers, right? Because remember, we talked about all those scary, scary outcomes. This is what we find students reporting: substance abuse, being sick, that's untreated psychiatric illness, sleep, study habits, and having a sucky roommate. Okay, these are the top barriers, because when you have a sucky roommate, yes, it sounds silly, but it's a big deal, especially with COVID. Try studying in a room with a roommate you don't get along with, or whose hygiene doesn't quite sync with yours, whose sleep-wake habits don't sync with yours. It's a big deal. right? Study habits, attendance, these are all big deals. And so I'm looking at these barriers, and I want to give you guys tools to handle every one of them. Deal? So barrier number one, let's look at study habits, right? No matter how you cut it, study habits were bad enough before for college kids, all right? You woke up late, you barely studied, you scrambled. But now with COVID, with remote learning, it's hard to even get up. Going to a classroom was really powerful, not just because of the live education, because, I'll have people say, well, what's the difference if I'm seeing it on a screen? The difference is this: when you get up, you get your ass out of bed. You know what? Your body, your brain wakes up. You're getting that breeze as you walk from the dorm to that room. You're hearing sounds. You're seeing people, smell, sight, sound, touch. All of that wakes you up. You see people in class. Now you've got that sensory deprivation. That is really hard for focus. It really keeps the mind from wanting to wake up and be alert and pay attention. Okay. Attendance has absolutely been affected by COVID because it's not so visible anymore. Because all you have to do is log on. And then after that, you can just go take a nap. Some of you did nap in class even before. I agree. I understand. But now it's way different. You may have nodded off. Now it's why bother, right? Attention is really hard. Staring at a screen for hours and hours. It's really hard. When you don't have that contrast in life, that sensory contrast, this stuff becomes tough. Okay? So what I say is, let's just look at something interesting. You're in college, and I did not grow up here. And so I had to, really understand, learn about how colleges operate in the US. I was shocked because I found that college students on an average spend just 2.5 hours a day with instruction, 2.5 hours. And that is if you're taking 15 credit hours. That's barely anything, because in kindergarten, guess how much time you spent in a classroom? 4 hours. High school, 6.5, 7 hours. Now you barely get anything, 2.5 hours. You used to be in school, kindergarten, high school, you were in school 180 days a week, which wasn't much. Now you're only in it for 160 days out of a year. Okay, very little. And then you're tossed into adulthood, where you're supposed to have a 40-hour work week, where it's at least 40 hours a week, right? Minimum. You're expected to work at least 240 days out of the year. And here you are in college, you've been trained to work barely 2.5 hours a day, if even. You've been told for every credit hour, you should study for 3 hours. That would mean basically every single day about 9 hours. Nobody does that. And so when we toss you into the real world, where time and expectations are so different, and you have to work for almost twice the number of days, it's miserable. Okay? So get yourselves first start by managing your time. I think it's really important for every college student to get themselves a planner. Right on there, look at it as to exactly what you do with your time. Plug in what you're going to do with it. Plug in the boring stuff. Plug in the silly stuff too. Plug in all the fun stuff. But first plug in your classes and your study hours. Because that visual is really going to be a wake-up call for you in realizing how little you actually study. And the outcome is going to depend on your behaviors, right? Don't squander time. How are we doing on time, speaking of which?
You got 40 minutes.
15, 40, super, thank you. All right, I have a little toolkit there. The second thing is study supplies. With COVID, it's really, really important, because you guys are studying at your desk. If you want this to work, do one thing. Get a planner. If you can, get more than one monitor, so you're not staring into one screen. You have reference pages open. Get yourselves a printer and some paper and some supplies in your room. If it's, available on campus, you're not going to go out there and do it. Have access to some of these things because looking at it on paper is going to help you. Shuffle up what your eyes see. Get some extra lamps in that room, make it bright. Oops, sorry, right? Get some eye drops. It'll make a difference. Your focus will be better. Get some noise canceling headphones so you don't hear the, annoying sounds that our roommates make, even clearing the throat. Has anyone seen that TikTok video of Jennifer Aniston? I couldn't get it out of my head. No? Okay, that's your homework. All right. Someone made a TikTok video of Jennifer Aniston and how she clears her throat. Sounds are annoying. Get headphones, okay? Get yourself a whiteboard. Really, really important. Get yourself one of these. A little weight, 5 pound, 8 pound. Put it on your desk right here. So guess what happens? Keep the hand that you don't use to move your monitor or write. Hold on to this. It'll keep you from freeing that hand to mess around with your phone and shop or tweet or all that nonsense. When you are studying, study. All right? Have this. If nothing, you're going to be doing this as you're watching your lecture. You know what? You're going to walk out with better arms. Right? It's so light, one arm isn't going to be better than the other, so it's okay. Right? Because I get asked that. Have bottles of water right there. Have muscle milk. And most important, have a gratitude journal, guys. Change the way you think every single day. I need you now more than ever. Every night before you go to bed, think, what am I grateful for about just the past 24 hours? Something that I am grateful for. Learn to be specific. Don't use baloney lines like, I'm so grateful for my life. Learn to be specific. I'm so grateful for that young lady down the hall. She saw me coughing and she brought over some cough drops and dropped them off at my door. Okay, learn to recognize and have gratitude for every damn thing. It's going to help you. Wake up with joy. I don't care if no one's going to see you. Hit the shower. That sensory, that sound, that smell, that is important to the human brain. It sends that signal. And from 9 to 5, I don't care if you're in class for only 2.5 hours. Think of it as I'm on a shift from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., just as if I were working at the Gap, I'd be on. I'd find work to do. If there's no customer in the store, I wouldn't just sit around and fiddle on my phone. I'd fold clothes. I'd do something. Be like that. 9 to 5, be in a classroom or be studying. You've got to be doing some work. Because I know what would happen if you were at Jewel or anywhere and said, well, there's nothing really going on, so I was just, playing video games. You'd be fired. That's where things come in. Think of yourself as a shift worker, 9 to 5. After 5, oh my gosh, beautiful people, go have fun, go celebrate your lives, right? But do this. Another big, big rule for studying through COVID, I call it the 90-10 rule. Because you guys are like the Titanic. When you are having fun, what happened with the Titanic? It saw that iceberg. It did see it. Problem was it was having so much fun. When we're having fun, it's very difficult to stop the course. That's what happened, why the Titanic crashed. It saw the iceberg, but it couldn't change course. That's the same with breaks. When we take a break that is too long, 30-minute break, it's absurd. Because we'll start to do something fun and to turn back from that fun to boom, boom, boring, boring, listening to a droning lecture, not going to happen, right? So guys, understand how your brain works and say 90 minutes, set that timer on your phone, study for 90 minutes, and then take a 10-minute break. And in that 10-minute break, get up, do some squats, do some stretches, go empty your bladder. I want you to empty it. I don't care if you think you don't need to use the bathroom, because guess what? You'll be surprised how disruptive those breaks can be when they don't happen on time. Okay. Use mouthwash, wakes you up, perks you up. Don't use that time to do your chores. I can't tell you how many students will tell me, well, then I have one class at 2 and then I have one class at blah, blah, blah. And in between I do my laundry and I take a nap. Don't do that. Just like if you were working at Target, you would not be doing your laundry on shift, okay? Start to think of yourself like that. Wake up with joy and be responsible. If you have ADHD or had ADHD in school, remember, guys, now more than ever, really important that you continue with your treatment, because that ADHD does not just go away. You go off to college, 65% of you still have the full-blown syndrome. 35% of you have enough symptoms to really get in the way of your performance. And then add COVID, even if you didn't have ADHD, boys are hard to focus. So if you are concerned that you have trouble focusing, for heaven's sakes, fix it. Okay, get help, right? Because if you don't fix ADHD, clinical ADHD, bottom line is you're 2 times as less likely to graduate. It's an easy problem that we could have fixed. A lot of kids who don't do well, it's because they fell through the cracks. They went off to college, no longer in touch with their doctors, didn't want to take medication because they're parties, and because they've been told with these horrible warnings, labels, do not drink, like to party or some dumb medicine, I'm going to pick party. And so they stop taking their medication. Okay, find doctors that have honest conversations with you about alcohol and don't use scare tactics, right? Because if you don't treat that ADHD, 2 times more likely to be financially dependent on your parents, and even worse, that parents would be scared of, right? But guess what? I have news for you. 2.5 times more likely to be living with your parents when you graduate. I don't know which of you is terribly excited about that. That should be motivation. Okay, so it's important that you treat it, and tell your parents, that you need to, because barrier number 2 to college success is untreated mental illness, ADHD being one of it. This is the time where your illnesses are coming to fruition. It's just biology, plus the stress, plus alcohol, substances, all of this. But at this time in your life, 1 out of 4 college students has a diagnosable mental illness. This is before COVID. Now we're talking to adults. We're finding that at least 46% are reporting significant psychiatric issues. If they ever tested positive for COVID, huge likelihood of PTSD. Suicide rates have gone up, anxiety rates have gone up. So as it is, college was prime time for mental illness. And we hate you. I actually don't like that word. I call it psychiatric illness. I don't know. Okay. But now it's even worse. And it affects your grades. Because when we talk about kids who aren't doing well, 4 out of 5, the issue was they had a psychiatric illness. And that's why they didn't do well. They were depressed or they were anxious. They were paralyzed. Okay? This stuff is paralyzing. 2 out of 3 students who drop out, it's because of a mental illness. So guys, when I say stomp out that stigma, please, by that I mean stop being so afraid of struggling with any symptoms and speaking about it. It doesn't mean you walk around with that as your identity. It just means drop the shame, right? Get your medications, take an Uber, go get them, make sure you stay in touch with your doctors, make sure you have the appointment, make sure you tell your roommate, hey, I need to talk with my doctor, I've got a Zoom call, can I have some privacy? You do that if you had a hot date over. I can't understand why you wouldn't do that for something as important as your own brain and your health. Start to do it, take care of yourselves, okay? Because college is prime time. And they looked, there was an interesting study, the Nielsen market research. So they compared data March 2020 versus March 2019. You know how much online alcohol sales went up? Take a guess, 250% almost. This is with bars being closed, restaurants all being closed, no parties or barely any parties, 250%, which means people are drinking so much more and they're drinking alone. Okay, that's scary. Okay. So, and then of course, suicide. So there's a lovely little star there that talks about the suicide risk. And what it basically says is screen for illness, speak up, guys, don't hide it, support each other in really understanding what it looks like. It should not have to lead to someone talking about suicide. Start to understand what these illnesses look like, okay? Cut down your stress, build up each other's self-esteem, start to support your friends, supply hope to people. Hopelessness is one of the biggest risk factors for suicide. Another is being alone, solitude, which you have right now in spades, thanks to COVID, okay? SUD is substance abuse. Learn to drink, but drink with safety. Learn to drink responsibly. And most importantly, don't be silent, speak up, okay, if you are concerned. So these are things that I think are really important. Let's go to the next one, sucky roommate. I'm guessing some of you, at least a few of you, have encountered that, okay? When I have young college students talk with me about roommate issues, and it's a big, big problem, and it's really a big part of why college can be a huge struggle. That's because I feel so bad, because I think we send you off and we don't realize that connecting with someone requires so many tools. You have to be authentic. You have to be vulnerable. That person's going to see your flaws. You have to show who you are. You have to really listen. You have to learn how to really see them. Okay? That's connectedness. You've got to know how to be assertive. You've got to know how to have boundaries. You got to know how to resolve conflict. All of these things that no one really talks to you about. And every one of those requires intentionality. So I, just for the future, if ever, any of you are interested, do let me know, because I do a lot of workshops on each of those individually. Okay? Too much to talk about today, but, right? And so be aware, accept things as, for what it is, and also recognize that really in the big scheme of things, we're just a little dot in this world. And COVID too is a little dot. It doesn't have to define us. It's a big part of what's going on. But shift your focus from making your life all about COVID. Okay? See what you can do. What kind of a doc do you want to be? Barrier number 4 is sleep. That's another biggie with college students. With COVID, I found that, yes, all the problems, of caffeine, energy drinks, not exercising anymore, sleeping all day, staying up all night, all of that is there as is. But right now, students with COVID, I think they're sleeping more than ever. And they're sleeping so much in the daytime, they can't sleep at night. And if you want to correct sleep, guys, you got to start to create sleep debt. Learn to get up no matter what. Again, go back to that shift at target rule. I don't care if you got only 2 hours. Get up and go. Get up and go to your job as a student from 9 to 5. After that, party time. Okay? Really important to fix sleep. And as I said, most important thing is get up. A lot of things we can talk about with sleep hygiene, if we have time. Last barrier is the leading cause of death in college students. I really saved the worst for the last. Number 1 cause of death in college students, it's not suicide, it's not depression. It's accidental drug overdose. Okay, that's really scary because that's preventable. And it's a big barrier to success. And so I'm going to share a little story. I've heard many, but this one especially really resonated with me, because it was a patient of mine, young lady in high school, went off to college, very, very excited to go off to college, far, far away. And, wanted to be a few states away from parents, enthusiastic, so wonderful. Joins a sorority, makes some really lovely friends. And for fall break, as a freshman, they decide to go to a music fest instead of coming home for that 4-day. So group of 16 of them go off to this music fest, have a blast, 3 days of beautiful music, partying, dancing, drinking, the works. After that, day 4, they are on a lake because one of the kids, the parents has a boat. So they're on a boat on a lake and dehydrated, just hammered. And there are 2 kids at the end of the boat, and they're kind of flirting with each other. Everyone knows they have a crush on each other. And the girl just pushes the boy. Everyone's drunk. She's drunk, he's drunk, the driver of the boat is drunk. And the kid, unfortunately, falls over. And my patient happened to be one of the young ladies on the boat, crushing that sound of the propellers. She will never forget that. She was traumatized. More than even that, here's what traumatized her: how students reacted. Because right away, it was the code of silence. It was not, whoa, what happened to Johnny? No one jumped in the water, nothing. It became, okay, guys, first, let's just keep going. Don't call the police yet. Right? So they go for a full hour, they take the boat away. Secondly, they're trying to throw out all the alcohol. Thirdly, they're like, let's just spend time on the boat because we want our alcohol levels to be down because we don't want to get drinking tickets. And what was the most appalling to me was that, to me, is integrity and humanity. You've lost a human life and it's all about you. And the audacity, and then how things unfolded, because they go now, the lies to the police. Worse than that, the next week in college, they're all heroes because they've all on Facebook, they've posted rest in peace about this young kid. When not one of them spoke the truth, it took the family a full month to find the body because they would not share their location. They were lied about. Everyone's stories were different because they had to lie about who was driving the boat. And that was the shame of it to me. How comfortable everyone was with creating this lie, posturing as, posting pictures of themselves with this kid, rest in peace and all that, but the utter lack of empathy. So sometimes partying is wonderful, but don't do it at the cost of losing who you are as a human. Because to me, that made me sick. That patient's mother reached out to me because she was mad that her daughter was angry at her peers and wouldn't join in this group plan. And I said, you are one of the few people, your daughter is one of the few genuinely good human beings. And so what I'm saying is, whatever happened on the boat stayed on the boat. This stuff, guys, be aware. It's all fun until things go bad. And once you start to pick up those habits of not having integrity, not having any standards, pretending you're grieving, pretending you care, that becomes a habit. That becomes your character. Okay? And that's the core of that egg. COVID or not, that is your responsibility. Remind yourself, what are your goals going off to college? What's your purpose? Reread that college essay that you guys wrote. Okay? And keep reading it. Go back to it once a month. Stay authentic. What did you say you wanted to do? As you grow, you're not bacteria. Of course, your plans and dreams will change. But you know what? That thread of wanting to do something and being accountable and having a dream, be accountable to that. Respect it. Respect your material. Find people, get a group where you can say, okay, let's all read our college letters. And you're going to laugh at a lot of the nonsense you wrote on there. But you know what? It reminds you also of who you really are, what you were meant to do. Get intentional. Or life is just going to come take over. Okay? So it's not the end of the world that we have bad things happen. It is what it is. Stay in the here and now. Change your thoughts. But you guys, you're the face of the future of America. Your lives matter. Living your life with intentionality matters. And so as we end this talk, I hope every one of you can walk away just feeling a little bit more informed, a little bit more uplifted and less afraid of COVID and college and stress, and just hugely, hugely inspired. So Thank you for this invitation to be here. Thank you for your attention, and stay mega, mega, mega intentional. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Din. Oh my God, that was amazing. I'm going to open the floor up to some questions. So feel free to jump in whenever, you guys, and Dr. Din will answer those for us.
Love to.
Yay.
Don't be afraid, guys. Okay, remember, it's about being vulnerable. All right? I see you as human. No question is, is unworthy.
And have them just unmute themselves.
I'm sorry?
Just have them unmute if they do.
Oh, can you unmute yourselves if you're asking a question? My lovely, lovely tech crew here just said to remind you of that. What would I be without them? Oh, how about we do this? I know what we should do. Let's say hello to our mascot. Okay, our little Puff. And so then as you guys see Puff, maybe you loosen up and then say, okay, here's my question. Okay, and if you don't have a question, as I said, here's our little Puff. Here's little Puff. Puffy, little Puff. And here's Becca, and she's a part of our amazing team. And Becca has helped coordinate and put this together, and has given me the courage to not be afraid of Zoom. Okay.
I wish I had this talk. I'm almost 30, and I spent about 8 years making every mistake that she talks about after college. So it's really nice to hear and use it in my now, I guess,
Never